Coming up today on the Wincinnati podcast, will Joe Burrow end up going back to the Super Bowl? And we're going to also talk about potential draft debates for the Bengals coming up next on the Wincinnati podcast.
Yes. Hello, world. We got a special show as always. TJ Houshmanzada, Jimmy Chase, Coach Jimmy Burrow.
How do you balance being a professional athlete and family obligation?
These are top 5 Bengals of all time.
All time, man? Yeah. Shock the world.
Welcome to the Wincinnati podcast. He is your host, Zim Hude. I am your host, Ace Boogie. Zim, what's going on?
Nothing much, man. Just out here rocking in the free world, trying to get my life together, trying to get ready for this draft. We're less than 2 weeks away from a very, very important draft for this organization. We're going to get into a lot of that different stuff today, and we got a really, really, really special guest coming up too.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to talk about some of the stuff that we said before the show with will Joe Burrow get back to the Super Bowl? We have a special guest that will be joining us very soon. But let's kick it off with that first topic. Will Joe Burrow get back to the Super Bowl? We've seen this kind of floated around. It's been talked about with Dan Marino and guys like Cam Newton. CBS Sports actually tweeted a graphic with all of these quarterbacks that essentially lost in the Super Bowl and didn't end up getting back. What were your thoughts on that, and what separates, I guess, Joe Burrow from those guys?
I think a lot of these guys I was looking at, some of them did have a lot of early success. Just so I can run off some names for you, it's got Jake Delhomme on here, Rich Gannon, Kerry Collins, who absolutely the one thing about Kerry Collins is when Ravens fans talk to us about Super Bowls and stuff, I'm very quick to be like, bro, I lost to Joe Montana. And then and I'm like, Kerry Collins. All right, but that's just a sidebar. Steve McNair, RIP, Chris Chandler, Drew Bledsoe, Neil Donald, Colin Kaepernick, Rex Grossman, Cam Newton. Out of this list, Donovan McNabb, Cam Newton, you could make an argument for Matt Ryan, maybe Drew Bledsoe. The rest of them are complete average quarterbacks to me.
Facts.
So
I agree with you.
So to put them against that to me is just it's not fair. I think we're looking at a guy that just had so much success. People always talk about this past year. I always look at his rookie year and just look at like what he did with that roster. People want to talk about injuries. That roster was injured, wasn't good, and he still was out there fighting, and we were at every single game. He gets hurt. I just thought like that we could have potentially been one of the worst teams in football, like 0 wins without Joe Burrow in that season, which would have been a historical low. But Joe Burrow is just very different in that regard. I said this in our Twitter spaces when we were comparing quarterbacks and we were talking about Matt Stafford one day. I said, bro, Joe Burrow is an absolute psychopath. Like, I don't understand why y'all talking about him like he's like this normal guy, because I guess he looks handsome on camera or something. But like deep down inside, like this guy is a complete psycho. Everything about him that we've seen is like something that you've seen from like movies where, you know what I mean? Like the guy's like super cool to people, whatever. But at nighttime, he's just thinking about how he can get revenge.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think even when you look at this list based off of it, I'd have to rank Burrow ahead of these guys. You know, Cam Newton, he was in a situation where he didn't really have many weapons in Carolina, right? That was his MVP year where he really just put the team on his back. You're talking about a Bengals offense and a quarterback in Joe Burrow, who not only did some tremendous things in college, similar to Cam, right? But he's a completely different quarterback, and this is a completely different team because you have Jamar Chase, you had Tyler Boyd, you have T. Higgins and Joe Mixon, and a great defense. This team is built to have a window for at least another 4 to 5 seasons. And I think we're just getting started. And I think that's what differentiates some of those other teams from that, right? Like he's got the Atlanta Falcons offense right now, like all of them in their prime right now that went to the Super Bowl. So I think it's definitely a little bit different. And we already know that Joe keeps that chip on his shoulder. But teeing this up, there was an article that came out from a draft insider, Tony Pauline, that was very interesting because although the Bengals will not be taking a receiver, there was an article that came out that said that Tony Pauline has spoken to teams and they have said there are 6 wide receivers from this upcoming draft that have a first round grade on them. Zim, what does that mean for us?
It means that we're going to have some fun. It means that the guys that we want are going to fall right to us. Now, the old Zim who would have entertained the idea of like, give me one of those wide receivers. But at the same time, like, I understand the deficiencies of this team. I still always want weapons, but for what we're looking for, I think if you ask 99.9% of Bengals fans, what are you looking for? You're looking for, a cornerback or either another left guard replacement or center Linderbaum where we can slide Ted Karras over the left guard. Or you might find some Bengals that think that the D tackle, right? But all three of those positions all benefit from a run on wide receivers and quarterbacks. So my six that I think when people say that, I don't know if people are considering George Pickens as one of those. I think people are kind of sleeping on the kid Jahan Dotson, but Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Jameson Williams, those are the three that come off first. Now, before we started doing this mock series and stuff, it was always thought that it might be 4 or 5, and then Chris Olave would be like the guy that somebody trades up to the Bengals to get him out. But Jahan Dotson, the more I watch him, I think George Pickens a lot of his, what it reminds me about George Pickens, a lot like T. Higgins. It's a guy that has no business being there, I think, day 2, and I think people are going to fight. Like, if he goes to the right situation, I think a guy like George Pickens is like top of the second, but you might have a team, that says, let me trade up to these Bengals and let me go get him. He could be the 6th guy, but those are my 6. Did I say Burks? Because Burks is one of them too.
No, Burks is another. I think it just benefits us because there could be a run on the edge rushers as well as this run on the wide receivers. And then you got some quarterbacks that may be fringe first or second rounds. And with that class being so weak, it pushes those guys up too, right? It really reminds me of the 2011 draft. So for me, I think that it does nothing but helps the Bengals out so that at 31, we have our pick of some good players that probably in traditional years, if we had a need at wide receiver, wouldn't be as considered. So next, we're going to talk about another article that he had, which talked about tight ends. Obviously, the Bengals are in the market for a tight end this offseason. The one thing that he said that really caught my eye is not our guy, Jeremy Ruckert, or any of that, but Jelani Woods is moving up the boards and could be potentially the second tight end taken in this draft. What are your thoughts on Jelani Woods and the rise of him and how that would affect the tight end class as the Bengals are looking for one?
I've been saying this all along. You look at his RAS, shout out to, I think it's Matt Baum that makes the RAS scores or whatever online. Jelani Woods tests like a freak. You watch a Virginia game, he looks like a bum. so like, I don't know. I know a lot of the fan base is like, Jelani Woods is, like, bro, you get like, like later in the draft, give me 3rd round Jelani. Yeah, I'll be all over because my expectations, like a lot of my draft philosophies and my ideologies are based on playing time and how fast can you get on the field, snaps. I think that's why the whole fan base looks at Drew Sample as though like that isn't the right choice because he's a bit of a project from a receiving standpoint and you kind of know his limitations. Jelani Woods, you could see the upside, but when you watch the games, I mean, I just don't see it. Now, Jeremy Ruckert, the good thing about him is that you see it. I look at Trey McBride, and to me, I don't see like he doesn't just pop. Like I know he ran a 4.5, but he doesn't look like some world beater to me. Like when I watch him, like I never claim to be like a pro analyst, like our guest coming up, but he just doesn't show up like that. He looks like CJ Uzomah to me. Like maybe I'm missing something. But so Rucker being the second one off the board wouldn't surprise me because he's out of the ones that we just named, he's the most refined out of all of them.
Right. So speaking of, you mentioned our special guest, we are going to welcome our man Brett Kollman up. Brett, how are you doing today, bro?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. We appreciate you taking some time. And if you guys aren't familiar with his work, please be sure to check him out on YouTube and Twitter. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. He's got some draft content coming. It's A1. I really appreciated one of his videos that he did a while back about how to stop the Bengals. Some great film breakdown there. But bringing you into the discussion here, you kind of had some opinions about Greg Dulcich. Can you just kind of talk to us about like what that tweet meant and why you feel like he could be a potential ideal match for the Bengals?
Yeah, I think when you look at what Dulcich does really well, I think he's got a lot of vertical ability, which I can't say for most tight ends. Like there's some tight ends in this class where I'm not really feeling confident that if I need to, run a slot fade and have them stack on a safety or a linebacker they put in the slot, they can actually get over the top. I think Dulcich is one of the guys that can actually get over the top. And for an offense in Cincinnati that really likes going vertical, both with T and Jamar and unfortunately you lost CJ in free agency, but having a tight end that has that vertical element that I think actually has the speed to go deep and capitalize on Burrow's, let's just say, proclivity to throw those deep balls. I think that's a really important thing that they need. And since they did lose CJ, I wouldn't be, what's the best way to say this? Shocked but not surprised if Dulcich does go 31 because of his unique skill set and size, speed, and system fit.
No, I agree with you. I definitely get shades of watching him myself. Tyler Eifert. He just really, I don't know if it's the hair. I don't know what it is, but he really just reminds me of Tyler Eifert. And what are your thoughts on Dulcich?
I like Dulcich a lot. I know before the draft, not the draft, but like before draft season started, he wasn't a name that was like, up there. I think like early on, I just kind of watched highlights and stuff. I had him ranked like 8th, but ever since like testing and all this other stuff has happened, there's a lot of different things that I feel like Brett just pointed out, that I just think like if the fit is there, he'll work out in a lot of different spots. And I think you'll see some teams that may say that they like the upside of like a Jelani Woods or something like that. What do you think, is the difference? Or
because there's no Kyle Pitts in this class, right? We
right.
all can agree that there's no Kyle Pitts there. But right. Who are some of your tight ends that you like in this class?
Ooh, I did just release my tight end rankings video today, so this is actually perfect. But when I look at my tight end rankings, so Greg Dulcich is my only tier 1 guy.
Really?
Yeah, but the tier 2 is also very strong, and the gap isn't like there's a gap, but it's not like Kyle Pitts to Trey McBride gap. It's a little bit shorter of a gap. So my tier 2, I've got Cade Otton, Trey McBride, Jake Ferguson, Charlie Kohler, Jelani Woods, and they could go in any order. I personally heard that Jelani is going to be one of the top 3 tight ends off the board, along with McBride and probably Dulcich. But there could be 6 tight ends in the top 75 picks or so. So if you are going to get one early. I would say in terms of if you want somebody who's a little bit more of a two-way player, somebody who could block really well, you're going to go either McBride or Otton. Otton, I think, has a lot more physical talent than McBride, which is why I have him rated slightly ahead. I mean, to give context, even McBride's own people that were kind of around when he was training thought he was going to run low 4.7. So for him to pop a 4.57 was not expected. He was kind of in his bag that day, but he really does kind of play to that 4.7 speed. He's a great blocker, super tough, catches everything, but Cade Otton is a more physically gifted player and also a really good blocker. Like you watched the Michigan game, he had some reps where he was holding up against Aiden Hutchinson. He was holding up against Ojabo one-on-one and doing just fine. Jake Ferguson is basically Dalton Schultz 2.0. So if you like Dalton Schultz, that's your guy. And Charlie Kohler, kind of worthless as a blocker in the run game right now, but moves a lot like Travis Kelce. So if you're looking for a tight end that can kind of be a big slot, a third down conversion machine, and you can just kind of stomach him not being able to block anybody, Charlie Kohler is your guy. So a lot of different flavors in this tight end class. It just kind of depends on what they're looking for. But either way, there's going to be a dude in the first 2 rounds that's going to be there for him, and I think they'll be happy.
Definitely, definitely.
You had Dulcich. I don't know if I read it incorrectly, but you said that you would take Dulcich as early as 31.
It depends on who's on the board. If we're talking like Linderbaum versus Dulcich, I'd go Linderbaum and then move Karras over. But if there's no corners and all the interior, like if Zion Johnson's also gone, if all of them are gone, and we can't trade out of the pick, and we just gotta make a pick, I would say Dulcich is one that I can get behind and at least feel good about it. It's not an ideal scenario, but I'd be okay with it.
I think the Hayden Hurst signing might give them a little bit of relief, just to say, like we're not as pressed for tight end as like if CJ just walked. Do you think that's fair, or you think they'll just say forget that? Like Dolchis is the guy. I feel like it relieves a little bit of the pressure of the position.
It makes them not desperate. I'll give you that. Like they're not desperate for it, but it would be a downgrade compared to what CJ was giving them last year. So for me, like I'm not Duke Tobin, but if I was building the Bengals, my top priority is to make Joe Burrow an unstoppable demigod of football. Part of that is to give him as many weapons as humanly possible, or to give him as much protection as humanly possible. Any two things that do not fall into that category, I would move on. I would just prioritize Joe Burrow. We'll figure out corner unless like a crazy value happens. Derek Stingley falls within striking range where you can trade something crazy. Other than that, make my quarterback's life better, because if you want to win a Super Bowl, it's going to be because of Joe. So lean into that, in my opinion.
Definitely. So going back to Tony Pauline, he came out with a report that said that 0 teams that he's talked to have Tyler Linderbaum as a first-round pick. So that they, for the most part, have him as an early second-round pick. We kind of talked to you a little bit about that before the show. What are your thoughts on just Tyler Linderbaum?
It depends on the system, to be honest. With the system that Cincinnati likes to run, I think they would lean into his capabilities in the wide zone run game, his ability to get in the second level, locate and latch onto linebackers in space really, really well. Like that's what he does really well. And also in pass protection, he's really, really smart, understands things really well, picks up stunts in games really well, which is a problem. In my opinion, that's been like the main issue with Cincinnati's pass protection is they could not handle stunts at all. They were terrible at it. And Linderbaum, I think, is a good stabilizing presence in the middle to help with that kind of thing. You look at the Indiana game, it was like 45 seconds left in the second quarter. They got hit with a TT stunt, and like his guard, kind of stepped in the buck a little bit. He got pinned inside. They lost levels, which is like the number one thing you don't want to do in handling a stunt is losing levels. And so he just slipped behind his guard, took over in the B gap, and then picked up the looper, which it's not a normal thing to see a center do that. So
easy.
So it's not easy. So from that standpoint, yeah, he would fit Cincinnati really well. Plus they tend to they like to run counter a lot. And if you really kind of want to unlock the counter run game, you need to have a center that can move so that you can pull him. So for them specifically, I think he's a first round value. For other teams, maybe that kind of like base and inside zone, and they really want to work those double teams on nose tackles and just get crazy push. Not so much, but for Cincinnati, yeah, I'd be totally cool with him at 31.
What do you say to the guy? Like, there's a lot of pessimists that believe that Linderbaum's got short arms, and we're in the AFC North. He's gonna have to go up against Cam Hayward. And you talked about some games. I watched him in the Penn State game. Absolutely, I forgot the kid. I forgot the guy he was going up against. Laid him out pancake like 4 or 5 times to the point where he was just like laying on top of this dude like every single play. But there are a lot of people that say that he won't hold up in the AFC North, or if you were to potentially see like a Vita Vea like type nose or something like that. What do you think that the Bengals could do in that type of situation, or do you think that is even an issue for them?
There are some things you can do with 6-man pass protections if you don't feel like your center can hold up against Vita Vea. If you want to, if you want to leave your tackles one-on-one and then wherever Vita's lining up, you kind of do like a half slide to it. You can get away with that. You're going to have to commit a running back probably for chip help for whichever tackle you don't feel good about their resulting one-on-one. But most noses are not Vita. So that's not going to be a problem you're going to face every single week, just occasionally. But that
I don't know what made me say Vita Vea. I was just thinking about the largest guy I could think of.
I mean, even looking at the Steelers, like you got Cam Hayward. They put Cam Hayward at nose. It's a problem, but Cam's going to be a problem for everybody. And so I think that kind of balances out where what you get in the run game is so good, and what you get in terms of ability to pick up stunts and blitzes is so good that if you're just getting 4 down and you feel like they are specifically attacking him, with a certain matchup. I think helping him out in those scenarios is still the good outweighs the bad, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. It's like he still does so much well that him getting dug out by a 330-pound nose every once in a while, it's going to suck when it happens, but there's no perfect prospects.
Right, especially with how, I mean, we're already used to that in Cincinnati, right? We did not have a great line last season, so I don't think that would be too much of a concern if it's not happening as much. Brett, I want to get into your draft crushes. Like, who are some of your top prospects of this draft that you are just like, this is my guy, and by any means, that's my choice, and I'm no matter what, like straight up draft day style, no matter what, this prospect is coming to my team.
I'm going to do this from the Bengals perspective. And I look at their secondary right now, and, obviously corner could use some help. But I think one of the crazy best case scenarios for Cincinnati is if Trent McDuffie's there. He won't be, but I'm just going to speculate and say he is. Because Trent McDuffie, to me, is going to be a good corner in the NFL. But I think he's a ridiculous all-pro level safety. And so I think if you want to kind of get into that nickel realm where you're playing nickel all day, every day, kind of like what Kansas City does, where they put 3 safeties on the field, but their safeties can go down and play in the slot. And so they can stay in nickel and they can play fast. And, everybody is always playing together in one package. So everybody knows all the checks. Everybody knows how everybody plays, so they can play really fast. I think you take Trent McDuffie, and he is the Tyron. He is the guy that goes down and plays in the slot. You can put him in the deep post. He tackles really well. He does everything. And I think that he's a phenomenal football player. He's one of the best UW DBs to come out in the last 5 or 6 years. And that's saying a lot because they've had a ton of them. And I think if he's there at 31, or even if he's just within striking range to trade up, I would totally get if they made a move for him, just because I think he's a special, special talent. But yeah, he's like best case scenario. If they're not getting anybody on offense, Trent McDuffie's who I want there.
What? All right. So our fan base, I think, hasn't even entertained McDuffie that much because we live in mock draft world where McDuffie is never there. But now this is something that I've seen a lot is Booth. The possibility of him coming down, and now you come. I've seen a report today. PFF compared him to Xavier Howard. And a lot of the fan base is a little bit split. I feel like some are like, well, he takes too many chances of this tackling. He's off with his tackling. He doesn't have the long speed. There's a lot of different things that I've heard about him. Do you feel like Booth is a good match? Is that a plug and play starting corner for the Bengals? Do you even value him as high as like what I think the average person does at 31?
Yeah, I would say at 31, that's a value because I actually do think he's a really good athlete. Like, I mean, his vertical, if he wasn't hurt, because I think he had a hernia that he did surgery on. If he wasn't hurt, his vertical would have been nuts. Like, from what I've heard, anywhere between 39 and 41 inches. So he's really springy. Definitely more tight hip than McDuffie for sure, which is why McDuffie's going to go ahead of him anyway. But I think he's got a lot of range, a lot of explosiveness. He's a willing hitter. Like, he will come downhill and smack you in the screen game for sure. And so I think if they want to run a lot of single high coverages where he's kind of playing over the top, and then you got, Jesse to cut crossers and he can rotate back to the deep post because he's super rangy. If they want to kind of play in that cover 3 zone exchange realm, they could totally do that with Booth. I'm not entirely sure what Lou Enamuro wants to do because I do think he's not as versatile as a corner as McDuffie, but if they want to lean into his strengths as cover, I can't call him a cover 3 corner, but that kind of like, press bail,
the zone press.
Yeah. All that kind of,
corner,
if they want to lean into that, I think he can do it really well.
Yeah, definitely. So I watched one of your videos, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, the 989 video where you kind of talked about the Bengals offense. They just really just chuck it up. With them bringing this offensive line to protect Burrow, what do you think about like that? Does it unlock the offense to being more than just that? Or, how do you see those signings kind of impacting this Bengals offense?
I definitely do think it kind of opens things up because now I think you can start to look at more like the 5-step drop back passing game and the 7-step drop back passing game, which they just couldn't do. Like they could not do it. It was all 3-step. And if they wanted to go deep, the only way they could do it was 989 because Joe would get back there, put his foot in the ground. He's reading the safety and determining where he's going based off that. So it was a deep ball game, but it was a quick deep ball game. Now they can kind of do more of the play action stuff. They can do the 5-step drop stuff, where it's like longer developing routes. Like you want to run a blaze out to the field, you can do it. You want to run dagger, you can do it. Anything with a backside dig, you can do it. Flood, that's all on the table now. And so I think the offense, as fun as it was last year, I don't think you've seen anything yet. You add one more piece of the offensive line, and we're off to the races.
The frustrating thing to me when I talk to people about the Super Bowl that hadn't seen the Bengals play, I'm like, listen, all year, balls out like 2 point. I made a whole compilation. It's like 7 minutes, bro, of just deep ball after deep ball after deep ball. I feel like the one thing that the Bengals didn't do in the Super Bowl is they didn't do any screens. They did one screen. When the previous week they ran 6-7 screens. And then I felt like people looked at Jalen Ramsey like that was like a big mismatch. I'm like, for this team and this one team, I feel like that plays in our favor because it's very rare that he was getting single coverage. And I thought like one of the things that they didn't do well was throw the ball like how you're saying, just 2-3, 2-step drop, balls out. They only did it, and when they did do that, they had success in it. And when you go back and watch the Super Bowl, it's almost like they fell into like this trap that the Rams set them up for. Like, well, okay, we rather you just run the ball, and then we'll take our chances on third down. And you were talking about the double moves and everything. I thought the difference was the Rams. If you look at the plays that Stafford had success on, those are all like combination dagger routes. Deep post, like all these different things, like all the success that they had was all predicated on the offensive line. So I think it is really crazy that you said that, just highlighting what I think this offense could be. What do you think is going to come up like from Joe Burrow, or what are your expectations this upcoming year?
All pro, playoff run, hopefully a deep playoff run, probably at least 4 primetime games. Just looking at the ratings that Cincy's going to get, I think this year, because everybody believes in them. So you're going to get at least a couple primetime games at the Jungle, which I think should be fun. The hard part for me is determining. Obviously, they're going to make the playoff, or likely will make the playoffs. The hard part for me is determining, okay, are they making it as a division winner or as a wild card? Because the AFC North is nuts. So that's the part I haven't been able to figure out. But I do think that they're in the mix in January because of who their quarterback is and because of, what they did on offense. The AFC, though, once you get to that second season, is nobody can predict it. I think they have a shot, which for now I think is all Bengals fans can really hope for. But they got a shot. They're going to be there.
Facts. He's known by many names: Joe Shiesty, Joe Burrow, Joey Jackpot, or Jackpot Joey. Do you have a favorite Joe Burrow nickname?
Me and my podcast partner have always called him Serial Killer Joe ever since he was at LSU, because the dude plays like a serial killer, man. If you miss him, he will cut your heart out and eat it in front of you. He's a psycho, like an actual insane person, which is what you want in a quarterback. He's nuts. He's nuts.
No,
man, I told people that man, we on the same page, because I'll be like, bro, he's not normal. I don't know what they gave him like this script, and people are just following like, oh man, he's a handsome fella. I'm like, nah, this dude is crazy. No. We interviewed his father, and I said, at what point? I didn't want to say, what point did you know your son was crazy as hell? But he was just like, like my son always had like this edge like early on, but he always kept it contained, and I thought that was like really telling. Like when you look at some of the other quarterbacks that you like, do you think that you said that's a quality that you have? Are there any other quarterbacks that you feel like have that same edge right now?
Tom Brady, Tom Brady and Joe Burrow are two of the guys where like there's a non-zero chance that they have a couple bodies in their basement right now. I think they both fall into that category, and there's not a whole lot of other quarterbacks that I could say that about where like you're almost a little bit afraid of them. Like you almost don't want to piss them off because if they get your license plate number, you might have to move. But no, he's a rare dude, man. He's a rare dude. His brain is different.
That's our Joe, bro. When he had free, hey, look, that's what I want from my quarterback. When he had free agents over, you didn't even give him food. He just had crackers and stuff. I don't know if you've seen the reports.
Crackers and cupcakes, yeah, for sure.
Crackers, like what a combination. Only a psycho could have like crackers and cupcakes.
It's like somebody who's like trying to imitate human emotion because they, all that kind of guy. Right, I love him. Though. It makes him a great quarterback, though. I'll tell you that.
Right.
Definitely for sure. Well, Brett, we appreciate you spending some time here with us. Before you go, please let people know where they can find your content.
Yeah, I'm YouTube, Twitter, TikTok now. I'm trying to get better at TikTok. I'm past 30 now, so it's a whole new world for me. All at Brett Kollman, the most German spelling you can think of, Kollmann. Just type that into any search bar. I'm sure one of my previous bad takes will pop up on Google there.
You got some good stuff on there, man. Just on TikTok, the only thing I'm gonna give you a tip on is just don't dance and you'll be fine.
Have you seen me dance? It's not.
No,
a good
I
idea.
haven't. I'm not the.
I would get
dancer.
Canceled immediately. That's how I ruined my career. I do a dance on TikTok.
Right. I always tell that to people. My mom asked me like, "Hey, she's a realtor. She's like, you think I should do a TikTok?" I'm like, "Sure, just don't dance. Just show houses and do what you do. Do what you've been doing. Just upload it to TikTok. Just don't fall into the dancing stuff. Just do what you've been doing, Brett."
Real estate TikTok, man. It's a force. It's a force.
It could. I have seen some stuff on there, man. I thank you so much, man. We really appreciate it. You said you got the offensive line grading coming out soon. You got some really good takes and some really good videos coming out, and we want to make sure that we get all you guys to check it out too. So please make sure you follow Brett. Appreciate you 100 times and 100 times over and over again, bro.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
All right, we appreciate Brett for coming through, but I'm feeling kind of hungry, Zim. Is there something you got something to eat over there? I haven't had dinner yet.
Man, sadly, I made some ribs earlier. They were pretty decent. I was talking to Ryan, our producer, about, like I put some stuff in the air fryer and stuff, but there's no way to emulate what Midwest Best Barbecue they have right now. I'm kind of sad I don't get a chance to eat it, but please make sure you guys get a chance to go over there and check it out. Tim and his wife Nicole, they are really, really great people. They actually are really, really, really big Bengals fans. I think that's really important. That the pod, we're putting on some people that actually do like the Bengals. I don't know why that's important to me, but that and the combination of the really good food there. Please make sure you go check them out. Please make sure you follow them too. Midwest Best Barbecue. Just Google it. It'll pop right up. Put in your search engines. It'll pop up. We've had some people go through there recently. You'll see all the comments, the great feedback. So trust us, it's for real.
Yeah, I'm with you. I need to get a flight just to go and get some of those Uno wings. We haven't had them yet. They looked out for us when we first came on. So they actually sent us some food and stuff like that. So we appreciate Tim and them over at Midwest Best Barbecue. But let's talk about some debates, bro. Like, there's been a lot of debates going on in Who Dey community. One of them being Andrew Booth versus Kaiir Elam. So let's get into that. What are your thoughts, pertaining to both of these prospects? Who do you think is the superior prospect and why?
It's hard for me to say superior. Hope you guys don't hear there's a plane going by my house right now. But it's hard for me to say superior. But I will say between the two, I lean towards Booth. Like Brett was just saying, super willing tackler. Won't have a problem getting implemented into a loose scheme. One of the things that I wanted to ask him, and I don't think I worded it correctly, is if he thought McDuffie had a chance to fall or something, thought that was crazy. I wanted to show him or ask him how likely he thought it would be for Booth to be there. Because to me, when I look at the board and I do a million mocks, I could see Booth going like maybe right in front of us, just like I might could see Linderbaum going right in front of us. But this concept that he won't be there, I don't think when you start looking at like the injury, the 40 time or the not running 40 time, the spinal injury, along with the sports hernia thing or whatever, I think those things factor in. But what I do know is he's a dog, went to his page. He's got the charisma. He's got the confidence, different things like that. We talked about on the last show how I feel like Elam was a lot more like Drake Kirkpatrick, not a willing tackler, in my opinion. I think he's better in coverage and in wide receivers with long speed, where I think Booth might have a problem. You put him one-on-one with, Will Fuller or somebody like that. Like, that's a potential thing where I could see like him getting out, ran on long speed. But all that underneath stuff, oh my God. Between him and Kyler Gordon, all that underneath stuff, they're taking all of that away. And Kyer Elam, I think for a long speed and coverage wise, doesn't panic, has good technique, different things like that. But for my preference, playmaking ability, I go Andrew Booth.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer for me. Andrew Booth Jr. is the better of the two. I think Kyer Elam, he has some physical things that may be in his corner when you compare the two. But I think when it comes to, like you said, tackling and stuff like that, it's a clear difference. Kyer Elam is kind of like Dion, as we were talking with our producer, Ryan. He kind of shies away from that contact, even though he's a bigger corner. And I just don't know how that's going to work out in the AFC North. But then we go into round 2 for best player available, Trey McBride versus Logan Hall. On this one, this is a tough one, right? This is a good debate. I think that I would probably go with McBride here. And the reason that I go with McBride there is because the Bengals, I've kind of talked about it for a while. That was one of the reasons that I wanted Kyle Pitts last year, because I kind of saw this coming, right? When CJ leaves, you really don't have anyone there. I really enjoyed the pickup of Hayden Hurst. However, he's only signed for a 1-year deal, right? And then you are back to Drew Sample. You don't really have much after that. You just brought back Mitchell Wilcox, I believe, but they don't really have a long-term answer there. And so Trey McBride, if he's staring you in the face in the second round, I think that that's good value for the Bengals to go out and get. Now, the one thing that concerns me with him, which I always bring up, is the lack of touchdowns. But I think that he's probably the safest tight end in this draft.
Yeah, for me, I don't disagree with anything that you said, but if it were me, I think day one, I think Hayden Hurst takes the pressure off a tight end early. If Dolchich was there and is what Brett Kollman just said he is, then maybe I might be a little bit different on it. And it is kind of crazy when you do watch Dolchich highlights. It is like a lot of some deep fades and different stuff like that. Don't see quite that many seam routes but there's a bunch of fade stuff that I have seen from Dolchich, and I like him, and I do think that he helps out Joe Burrow tremendously. I just think that there's like a crop of like tight ends that I think maybe they don't play a crazy amounts year one, but you don't care because you got Hayden Hurst. And I just think that rounds 3 and 4, you'll be able to get any of those dudes.
So you would be the Logan Hall camp then? Yeah,
I'm Logan Hall 100%. If this were the pick at the back end of the second round, Logan Hall to me, day one steps on the field, third down packages. We're not worried about second and third down. We're not worried about another reason why we lost the Super Bowl is the lack of interior pressure. Logan Hall day one will be able to replace the interior pressure that Ogunjobi applied throughout most of the season. And unlike Ogunjobi, will be able to finish a lot of that stuff. So Logan Hall will be the guy for me 100%. Like not even it's a no-brainer. Only and it's more so based off of the tight ends right behind him. There aren't many defensive tackles, 3-tech, or even 5-techs for that matter, that will be able to get pressure on the quarterback in this draft.
That's a great point. The third round, Perion Winfrey versus Jeremy Ruckert. Which one are you taking out of those two?
I'm going Ruckert now because I'm just, you know what I'm saying? But that's the crazy thing. So say I went McBride, then yeah, I come back and then I come and get Winfrey. But I just think Winfrey isn't going to give you the pass rushing abilities or whatever. One thing, everybody falls in love with what Winfrey did at the Senior Bowl, which is cool. But throughout, when you go watch his games, he didn't do that all the time. So, but if I just did the one where we just did, where I just took Hall, then I'm going Ruckert 100%. I know you're a big Ruckert guy, right?
Yeah, I love Ruckert. I think one of the things that I had to look at myself was, I tried to take the Ohio State blinders off, which not really hard because I haven't really watched them intensely throughout the years. And so I actually just got the chance to look at him today. And I was impressed. Like I saw a lot of people saying that he was low key the best tight end in the class. I saw a lot of things that flashed from him that separated him from some of the other guys. Dolchich is a good player, but this guy was, making one-handed grabs on Alabama linebackers. Like it was a lot of like slickness to his game and a lot of skill and talent that's there. And I think that he potentially could unwrap that in full in Cincinnati. And we're in a position where if you have Hayden Hurst, you're comfortable with having him there. And if you find Ruckert in like the third or the fourth, sure, you could put him in there. But if I'm going Perrion Winfrey after I just took McBride, Perrion Winfrey makes sense. The only issue that I have with him is I'm not so sure how he responds to the run game, right? He's a great pressure rusher and stuff like that. But when it comes to stopping the run, that's one of the concerns I have. But in this scenario, I would take Perrion because I took Trey McBride the round before. So Zim, we have a special guest coming up on Tuesday. We're getting ready to close out, but let the people know who we have coming through to Cincinnati next Tuesday.
We have none other than NFL Network's Aditi Kinkambala is coming to the Wincinnati podcast this upcoming Tuesday. I don't know the date on that. I'm not that smart, but you do the math. Today's Thursday, coming up in about 5, 6.
Yep, next Tuesday at 7:30. So please be on to discuss the Cincinnati Bengals. But if you want to know, if you're not aware of when that time is going to be, please be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell because you will get a notification when this show is live. And that way you guys can keep up with it because now we are exclusively streaming off of the Wincinnati YouTube channel. So please be sure if you're listening to this on your drive home, go to YouTube, go to Wincinnati, and make sure that you hit that subscribe button. And if you need to listen to this in the podcast, I heard a couple people on Twitter asking about it. Follow us on Twitter at the Wincinnati Pod, and then also find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, wherever you get your podcast at. Just put in the Wincinnati Podcast, and you can find us there. And please hit that 5-star review. We truly appreciate that. That helps other Bengals fans find our podcast. So we truly appreciate that. And we're out. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Wincinnati podcast.
Cincinnati. Yes, sir. Hello, world. We got a special show as always. TJ Hushmanzada, Jimmy Chase, Coach Jimmy Burrow.
Time to be a Bengals
How do
fan.
you balance being a professional athlete and family obligation? These are top 5 Bengals of all time.
All time, man. Shock the world.